What is up, my peepholes? This is your guy, Kalai, and welcome back to Budget Buys. Now today what I want to talk about is the Halo wireless speaker that I picked up just the other day at Five Below. This is brought to you by Series Regular's Bass Jacks, and to be perfectly honest, it's pretty interesting. Let me go ahead and flip it over to the back really quick just to talk about the specs, because unlike some of the other models, it actually doesn't deviate that much. Specifically when it comes to the Bluetooth range at 32.8 feet, I'd say that's fair. And the playback time of 1 to 2 hours. Yes, it's a little short, but to be perfectly honest, at the $5 range, that seems to be the trend right now, and if you're not playing it at max volume, you do get closer to 2 hours, if not a little bit more, so it's not that bad. Now let's talk about the unit itself. And here's the little guy in all of its luxury design glory. Now I will admit this does have a slightly larger footprint than the bulk of the Bluetooth speakers that I've covered thus far, but this is not the largest speaker that I've seen at Five Below. That honor goes to one that I saw a couple years back that was a 1 meter long Bluetooth speaker for $5. And it behaved just as well as you'd think a 1 meter long $5 Bluetooth speaker would, in that the battery ejected itself from the motherboard and fell all the way down to the 1 meter long enclosure. Good times. But if I want to compare this to a speaker that I actually have on hand, here is the Blast Bluetooth Cube that I reviewed a while back. And as you can see, it does take up a little bit more space on the shelf. Not that it's a bad thing, because I'll get more into that later. Now, one other difference between these two is that, like most of the Bluetooth speakers that I've reviewed thus far, the Cube has the driver sitting on top, whereas the Halo speaker actually has the driver on the bottom. And to be perfectly honest, I think that's a good design decision based on how this one's put together. Also, this one has, I believe, a 40mm driver. It's been a while since I reviewed it, but it has a 40mm driver just like pretty much every other speaker from Five Below does, but the Halo uses a 52mm driver. And if you're wondering what that means in the grand scheme of things, that means it moves more air, which means more volume. And that's a good thing. I'm wondering if the board is still just a 3-watt driver like all of these are, but I'm not going to do a full dissection and figure that out for myself right now. One more thing that's a big difference between these two, and yet sadly a similarity between this and a lot of the other Bluetooth speakers coming out of Five Below these days, and that's the lighting effect. I don't like it. It's just a simple RGB, 3 different monochromatic LED setup, whereas the Blast Bluetooth Cube has a nice little color shifting RGB setup, kind of like the LED light strip I reviewed not too long ago. That being said, this little guy far outclasses all of the other speakers that I have reviewed thus far when it comes to both volume and audio quality. This little guy gets a little tinny. It's not a big fan of the treble notes. And the same thing could be said about all of the other speakers that I reviewed thus far. Yes, they sound good most of the time, but if you're a metalhead like me, especially now that I've gotten more into power metal, they're not going to be your best friend. They're great for podcasts. I listen to quite a few podcasts on these, and they're great for that. But I like my music with a little bit more kick. In fact, let's bring this little guy front and center. I've already got a song pulled up, and it's connected to my phone. And let's just crank the volume. So yeah, as you can see, this little guy has some kick. and all for $5. This actually comes pretty close to a 5-watt, $20 Bluetooth speaker that I have sitting around that got in a giveaway. And for $5, you cannot go wrong with this little guy unless you want something slightly smaller with a better LED effect. Oh, actually, one more warning for any perfectionists out there. The way this is packaged, you're going to have a risk of scuffing around this outer rim. In fact, let's see if I can bring it in. As you can see, it's not really that noticeable, but it is there. All of them are going to be like that. The packaging is good, but not amazing, so buyer beware on that front. That's really my only downside to the way this is constructed and packaged. And if you like the way it sounds when it's lifted more so than when it's placed down, you can pick up just a small little cup shelf. They sometimes have them at Five Below sold as locker shelves, which is good because the school year is coming. But if they don't have those or you don't want to spend $5 on them, head on down to Dollar Tree. They do have small wire racks that you can just set this on top of and get the better audio quality from it being elevated for just $1 more. So, this definitely gets my seal of approval if you couldn't tell from my prattling on just now. And on that note, I really have nothing more to say, so until next time, this is your guy, Cly, signing off.